Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm glad you could be here with me. I'm going to talk to you today about my top 5 favorite authors. I've been very excited to bring this to you for a while, and I just haven't really taken the time to make this one a priority, but I wanted to today. And remember, if you get value from this video, please like and subscribe to my channel as well so that you don't miss out on my future videos. And so let's get right to it so I can tell you about my favorite authors. I'm so excited to share this with you. And some of them may not be a surprise, but some of them might. You never know. So, and also just know that my ranking for these authors does not mean these authors are spectacular or the best authors around, and it also doesn't mean that if I put them low on the list that they're just not really that great. All 5 of these authors are top notch on my list, and I like them for different reasons. So we will start with number 5, and that would be Jim Butcher. Now you may be thinking, man, why would you put Jim Butcher so low? And honestly, really, no, he's not that low. Jim Butcher is an amazing author. The Dresden Files are fantastic books. I'm thoroughly impressed with the series. I have so much fun reading those books. In fact, I often use the Dresden Files books as a palate cleanser when I've just got done reading a super intense, like, maybe this big epic fantasy that's really meaty and everything. I always know that I can turn to the Dresden Files for a little bit more low-key, just really fun fantasy adventure story that doesn't require me to put in enormous amounts of brain power to enjoy it. It's just, just really easygoing, fun fantasy stories. So I really love the Dresden Files for that reason. And I've also read The Aeronaut's Windlass by Jim Butcher. I thoroughly enjoyed that one as well. It was really well written, and I don't typically get into steampunk, so that one was pretty fun. I enjoyed it. So Jim Butcher is by no means a lower class author because I put him in the number 5 slot. There just happens to be others that I enjoy more, but I thoroughly enjoy Jim Butcher, and I highly recommend his stuff. I have not read Codex Alera, but I plan to in the future because I really do think that I'll enjoy pretty much anything Jim Butcher writes. So the number 4 author on this list, and okay, don't shoot me, folks. Don't get ready to impale me and behead me and all that kind of stuff. But I am putting J.R.R. Tolkien on my number 4 slot. And I know some of you are going to be just in this enormous outcry of despair and frustration and anger at me for putting Tolkien in the number 4 slot. But I did. I am a huge fan of The Lord of the Rings. I read the first 3 books over an entire summer, and I know they're not the first 3 books, right? I mean, but I read the Lord of the Rings trilogy over a summer, thoroughly enjoyed it. It's one of my favorite fantasy books of all time. I read so much of Tolkien's other stuff, The Hobbit, for instance. I think my kids have now read that 3 or 4 times, and I read it to them twice when they were a little bit younger. So huge impact on me and my family with The Hobbit. And I've also read the Silmarillion, which, if you know the Silmarillion, it's like the granddaddy of fantasy histories. It's just like super high level and really, really chewy. I mean, you have to be a really devoted fan to read the Silmarillion, and I thoroughly loved it. It was great. And I've read a couple of other of his books too, The Children of Húrin and stuff. And so he is a fantastic author. He He is the reason that fantasy really entered the modern world, in my personal estimation. And I know a lot of other people feel the same way, but that doesn't mean he's my number one. Okay, so um, take that for what you will. If you would put him in your number one slot, you go for it. And I'm happy to watch you fanboy or fangirl or fan person or whatever you want to over J.R. Tolkien. It is well warranted. Okay, number 3 on my list is Brandon Sanderson. Now, there's some of you out there I know are already saying, how could you put Brandon Sanderson in the number 3 slot? For the same reason I put J.R. Tolkien in the 4th slot. I love Brandon Sanderson's works. He is a massively popular author. He is a very, very talented author. I've loved all of the books that I've read by him so far. There is not a one that I would say I would not read it again. Although, I might say that but of the Stormlight Archive just because I don't have a lot of time. But if I had all the time in the world, I would devote myself to rereading those books again. And so maybe I'll find that time. But he is a brilliant, brilliant writer, and that's why he is in my top 5, because he is just that good and well worth the spot. The Stormlight Archive is his magnum opus for a reason. It's because it is just that good and that epic and that grand of a scale. And I'm just thoroughly impressed with the world and the multiverse that he's crafting. So I'm very excited to see what he does from here on out. And I have not read the entire Wheel of Time series yet, so I have not gotten to Brandon's books in the series. So that will be for another time. And yes, you will notice that Robert Jordan is not on my top 5 authors list because I haven't read all the books yet. So who knows? That could change. So moving on from number 3, we now get to number 2. And this author, in my mind, is highly underrated for the amount of books that he has released and the sheer scope of the world that he has created and other worlds that he's created, and that would be Terry Brooks. Terry Brooks, for the longest time, I always said was my favorite author, my top favorite author. But he got de-seated just a little bit. He's still super important to me and my journey in fantasy literature, and but you'll see in a minute, why he got dethroned just slightly, just down one notch. But the Shannara world is amazing. I mean, there are so many books in the world of Shannara. I still have not read all the books. And I'm hoping to eventually finish them at some point in the future. But they are just really magnificently done. And the nice thing about his books, the thing that I really, really love, is he has broken his world into different series so that if you don't want to explore the world of Shannara from the very beginning, you can pick up a series and enjoy it as a complete series without reading all 25 or so books, however many there are in the world of Shannara. So that's a really brilliant way to go about crafting your world, and a great way to keep your readers engaged, because each series does leave you wanting more if you really want to explore the rest of the world. So I leave that to you. I think Shannara is well worth your time. He has written other series, of which I have not read. The Landover series. He, of course, wrote the Word and Void series, which now has kind of been subsumed into the greater world of Shannara. And he wrote a sci-fi novel called Street Freaks, and I just saw it today. I'm so excited. I just saw that he announced a new book series that he has written, the first book being Children of Light. So I'm very excited to eventually read that one day too. But Terry Brooks was a huge influence in my early days of reading fantasy, and I am so glad that his books entered my life. I met him personally, and he's just a fantastic, personable guy, and I just can't say enough good about him. So there's my number two. Now, my absolute top number one author, at this stage of the game anyway, is Neil Gaiman. And I know you've heard me gush about Neil Gaiman in previous videos, so this probably comes as no surprise to most of you. But yes, Neil Gaiman is my absolute favorite author currently writing, and I have been hugely immersed in all of his books, whether it's the Sandman graphic novels, whether it's one of his standalones like Neverwhere, Ocean at the End of the Lane, which is, as of right now, still my current top favorite book of all time. And we'll talk more about that maybe in another video of my top favorite books of all time. But yeah, Neil is just a fantastic writer. And he's written so much and so broadly. I mean, he is generally an author that fits solidly in the fantasy genre, but he bridges so many other genres that it's kind of hard to totally pin him down sometimes. So, American Gods, he went into urban fantasy with Ocean at the End of the Lane. It was kind of more of a classic type of ghost story, so, bridging into the horror elements. Neverwhere is kind of a reimagining of a classic children's tale, but with a male protagonist instead. And it's just all these different things that make up Neil Gaiman's worlds. And he really puts it beautifully when he says, I make things up and I write them down. And that is literally what he does. And that's why he is so endearing to so many readers. And his books have impacted so many readers over the course of, dozens of years. So I'm just very, very happy to be a fan of Neil and to have access to his books. And I think if you haven't read Neil Gaiman and you don't plan to read Neil Gaiman, you are doing yourself a disservice. I realize maybe he's not for everybody, but you owe it to yourself to at least read one of his books. And that's all I'll have to say on that. But take that for what you will. That is my advice. Make sure that you read Neil Gaiman. Make sure that you read all of these authors. Like I mentioned, Terry Brooks is highly underrated for the quality of the fantasy world that he has created. And I'm really bummed that I don't hear him really talked about too much on BookTube, and not a lot of people read Terry, at least from what I've been hearing in recent years. And that is really unfortunate, because he does have a strong fan base, and he just doesn't always get the limelight that other authors do, and I think that's really unfortunate. So take that for what you will, and make sure that you check out all of these authors. And I hope my advice means something to you on that. With that being said, guys, I am going to end this video here. Make sure you stay tuned for my next videos coming up. We're nearing the end of the year, and I'm hoping to finish the year strong. I will be talking, maybe not next week, but the week after, about some of my goals for 2021 as far as channel goals. So if you're curious to hear what I want to see happen with my channel, and if you have some feedback, if you have suggestions of videos that you'd like me to see me do more, in 2021, or if you have any other feedback on the channel that you'd like to see me make changes or things like that, let me know in the comments, because I'll be thinking about that as I create my channel goals for 2021. All right, so stay tuned, guys. Thank you so much for joining me, and make sure that you're reading more books. I will talk to you soon.